Hey everybody, thanks for the heads up, Liz. Let me see if I can get the sound going.
Hello?
Hi.
Is that working?
That's all right. Hey everybody. Uh it's Angela Young Smucker and it's TCB Tuesday. I am going to see if I can share this one more time. I want to share the audio with you as well, and let's see if this works. All right, friends. Hi.
Hi.
I'll be
Off
with
to a
you
great
one
start.
one second, Anna. Hey, isn't this fun? Live. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna share the video that I was trying to share. Can you hear anything out there, friends? Let me know in the comments. And while you do that, I want to make sure our sound is going okay. Hold 1 second, my friends. Okay, good. Thanks, John. All right. Well, let me try this again, friends. Welcome. It's TCB Tuesday. And hi. It's good to see you guys. Good to have you with us if you're watching live. Um, Liz, Liz, I'm sorry you're having trouble with sound today, doll, but it's okay. We'll get through it together. Um, Welcome back to another TCB Tuesday. This is our Meet the Artist series, and I will be bringing on Anna Steinhoff here in just a second. Before we do that, just have a couple of announcements. First of all, I want to invite you to subscribe so you can get all the notifications about what we're doing, get behind the scenes stuff. You can see the little ticker down below as it goes by. Look at it go. I can't do it the right way. Da-da-da. Anyway, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you can sign up for our email list. We don't send out tons and tons of emails, but you can go to our website at thirdcoastbaroque.org to sign up for our email mailing list. And while you're there, you can take a look at all the other fun stuff we've been doing and what's coming up. Also, I would love, love, love to say a great big thank you to everybody who stepped up so quickly to help us make our match for our artist support fund. We have sort of primed the pump in that fund, and we're now over $6,000 in a fund that is dedicated just to financially supporting our artists through artist pay. So thank you so much for everybody who helped get us there quickly to start off. This fund will stay in effect infinitely, interminably. It's not just a relief fund, it is a fund that will be used for artist pay now and in the future. So we are so glad that we have this. And if you would like, you can go to thirdcoastbaroque.org/donate and make a gift. If you'd like it to go to this fund, you can indicate that. If you'd like it to go to our general fund that helps support all of our other behind the scenes operations, feel free to do that as well. All right, friends, I'm going to stop talking and I am going to bring on my friend Anna Steinhoff. Hey, friend.
Hey. How are you?
I'm good. Isn't technology amazing?
We have to learn so much about it now all of a sudden.
I
It's
know,
awful.
it's unbelievable. Um, well, I have to say, I am very excited to talk with you today because we're going to talk about instruments particularly your instruments. We were at least seeing a little bit of your viola da gamba, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But before we do, I would love to start out how I start with all of our artists and hear a little bit about your musical origin story.
Sure. Yeah.
When did you like have that moment where you realized, oh, music, that's that's what I want to do. That's
Yeah.
what I
Well,
want to
first
be
of all,
involved
thank
with.
you for having me. It's fun to see another human being, and
Yay!
also it's not natural for me to be in this setting and talk about myself for 45 minutes. So bear with me. But I will do my best. And let's see. My musical origin story. Well, first of all, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. That's not ever pleasant, but I'll try to ignore that. Um, I probably have a slightly typical beginning, as a lot of string players did. I started when I was 3 years old. My parents weren't musicians, but they exposed us to a lot of different things. I think I remember a gymnastics class or two, and my
Wow.
sister played violin. So apparently, when I was 3, I asked them if I could play the cello. Um, and I think it was the sort of thing where I wasn't that good, but I was just a little bit better than the other kids in my group class. And, that kind of thing when you're really young can give you just a boost of confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a pretty shy, maybe a little geeky kid. And so to have this thing, I remember in kindergarten, I played for the school talent show, and some fifth graders came up to me afterwards. And told me that they were impressed, and that I was playing the same thing as a kindergartner that they were playing in fifth grade. And I
Mm-hmm.
just thought I'll never forget it. Like, that was the most amazing feeling
Wow.
to feel confident as a 5-year-old, to feel like I could do something. And
Yeah.
I think that was really the beginning of just feeling like it gave me a focus and an identity as a
Mm-hmm.
really young kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I wasn't great, but I was just good enough that it gave me that confidence. And yeah.
So, and you started on cello,
I started on cello. Yeah, you start on like
and
a 16th size. It's like a big viola when you're that little. Yeah.
so how did you come to that instrument? Like
I
what?
don't really know. I just know my sister was taking Suzuki violin lessons, so I must have seen a cello somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably just appealed to me because it was bigger than what she was playing. But obviously I don't remember. I was so little. I really don't know, and I just probably loved the sound, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows, but I think kids ask for things. For
Yeah.
some reason, it resonates with them for certain reasons, and the cello just always resonated with me, no
Mm-hmm.
pun intended. And yeah, I just it just stuck. No one expected me to keep playing, but I just kept
Mm-hmm.
going with it.
Wow. Did you ever think of it as, it's just something fun that you like to do, or was
No.
it okay?
Yeah, I don't ever remember it being super fun, to be totally honest. It was always a challenge for me. I remember crying after pretty much every lesson I've ever had.
Oh
And I don't
no,
know why I liked that feeling, but it was always a really frustrating thing for me. I think I loved music, and I
why?
loved yeah, the way it made me feel when I could get lost in the music, and yet I could never quite do it the way I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to. And
Mm.
so what propelled me was certainly not fun. It was a sense of desire and longing to be able to make the music that I heard in my head. Even as a young kid, I just desperately wanted to be able to do this thing, and I could not do it. And so it was actually pretty torturous for a long
Wow.
time. And I think that feeling doesn't go away for string players, really. It's a
Mm-hmm.
particular type of torture that we inflict upon ourselves. It's hard work. And um, yeah, even through college, I'm not embarrassed to say there were a lot of tears in lessons, after lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been a
Well,
big
that's
part of my
not. Are
experience.
you sure you weren't a voice student?
Yeah, well, I'm sure I can't sing, but is that typical in voice lessons as well?
Oh yes. I mean,
It becomes more
this
like a psychology experiment than anything else.
exactly. See, I think voice teachers and maybe studio teachers in general need to have like a secondary degree in like
Yeah.
psychology and therapy, like
Yeah,
social work.
absolutely. Yeah, my
You know.
teachers, I always felt like they really saw something inside of me that no one else could see. The things you can't quite articulate in words, they're trying to bring out of you. And especially, I think, as a shy person, as a shy kid, um, yeah, the psychology behind getting on a stage when that's not your natural state, it really takes work and it takes some pretty deep psychological exploration. And I'm happy to say that now I'm pretty darn comfortable on a stage, but
Mm-hmm.
it's taken a lot of work to get there and a lot of soul searching and confidence building.
So, yeah, so something that caused you so much torment
Yeah.
early on and for so
Mhm.
long, like what kept you coming back?
Um, that's a good question. I think a love of the music itself. Like, I think what's interesting is performers, you often think that they perform because they love performing, but the truth is, a lot of us get into music because we like being alone in a room, perfecting a phrase or exploring, the puzzle that is a Bach suite. We love sort of like the personal exploration of music.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really what got me coming back was less about, performing and more about like I just really loved music and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be able to express that part of myself. It just felt more real and true than anything else that I've ever experienced. And so
Mm.
I was willing to go through that torment. I was willing to learn how to be on a stage and learn how to get through performance anxiety if that was a part of getting to be able to play the cello and getting to be able to express these deep parts of myself that words can't quite get to.
Wow. I love that. And so when you're on stage, I'm going to assume that you enjoy ensemble playing a little more than just like solo.
Absolutely. Yes. Ensemble playing, I can convince myself that no one's watching me personally,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I'm just fully invested in the
Mm-hmm.
communication between the other musicians. But when you're alone on stage, you can't fool yourself. Like everyone is watching you, everyone is paying attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest by far for me. Even
Mm-hmm.
still, in the past few years, I've gotten to do some of the St. Matthew Passion and St. John Passion solos on gamba, and there's nothing quite, as like that feeling of just the whole room's attention all of a sudden going on you. And
Mm-hmm.
you might have been playing for 2 hours already, but all of a sudden you're the center of attention. And that
Right.
that takes a lot of work for me to be able to put all of that aside and stay focused on what's important, which is just the music itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, anytime I have heard you in a feature or a solo, especially when you've been playing with Third Coast, like it's entrancing.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. And so I can't wait to hear more of featured
Gosh, I can't
Anna.
wait to I can't
Yeah.
wait to play again in front of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, you know what? Let's talk about that for a second. Like how has this pandemic sort of affected your day-to-day life?
Um, in some ways a lot, and in some ways, as a still relatively new mother, maybe not as much as you'd expect. Um, I guess the first thing is both my husband Justin and I are both musicians, and so in the blink of an eye, we lost all of our work for the foreseeable future, as many of us have.
Yeah.
So that was a real shock to the system. I was just gearing up to come back to work after a pretty light January and February. The spring was going to be probably, I think, every weekend concerts, 5 out of 7 days of rehearsals every week. And so Justin was going to be traveling. So that's a big shock to the system to all of a
Hmm.
sudden
You're like
have nothing
standing
on your
still.
calendar, life standing still.
Yeah.
And especially after, as you know, I have a 1.5-year-old, and when you have a baby, you go into sort of a secluded state as is. And I spent the last year pulling myself out of that and getting back into working. And really, this spring was going to be the first time that I was like fully back at work
Hmm.
and very
Hmm.
busy. And so now I feel like I've been thrust back into that state of seclusion that I just got out of. Um,
Yeah.
so that's an interesting challenge. And at the same time, I also feel really lucky to be able to provide my son with that consistency that he definitely would not have gotten if we were running around traveling every weekend for the next 3 months. So, yeah, it's a real mixed bag and a lot of fear and a lot of gratefulness at the same time. So it's
Yeah,
hard to sum up, as you know, it's really hard to sum up the
it,
experience.
it is. It is. And we've been at this for over a month now. What, 5 or 6 weeks, or more, depending on where you are. Um, but Yeah, I mean, have you sort of discovered any benefit of being at home so much? I know with parents, especially parents of young children, it's hard to really get a real break for yourself. So, have
Yeah.
you and Justin been able to navigate that? And how is Eli handling all that?
Yeah. I think Eli likes it. I mean, he gets to spend all of his time with his parents, which is
Yeah.
great for him. Yeah, so he's happy, but at the same time, as other parents know, it's great to be able to spend all of this time together, and then all of those things that you rely on, like going to the playground and going to the library and
Mhm.
babysitters here and there for, a little bit of time to yourself or time to practice. You don't have any of those luxuries anymore. So it's great to spend the time together, and also it's you have to be so creative. Like we spend so much time just pouring water in our kitchen into buckets because there's nothing else to do, which luckily Eli loves, but it gets
That's
old for us.
awesome. The simple pleasures
A
of
lot of water
life.
pouring. Yeah. Yeah, no, there are some good things about it. But I don't know. Mostly just getting to be together as a family. And that said,
Hmm.
um, Justin is finding ways to keep very busy. And so we probably don't actually spend as much time, the three of us, as we would like. It's a lot of, um, within a household of three, we wind up spending a lot of time just one on one with the baby rather than as a family. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, speaking of Justin, we
Yeah.
have a request from Liz that he should make an appearance. So I know he is
Is he
currently
talking about Justin
occupied.
or Eli? I'm not sure. He said cutest kid
Oh,
ever.
I don't know, Liz. I mean, we're gonna have to specify. I mean, either one. I think Eli's gonna be down for the count.
Yeah.
Um. So, I mean, yeah. I don't know about you, but with a lot of travel, like being in one place for a while has sort of been nice. Um.
Yeah, I don't regret maybe not having the stress of some of the travel schedule and performances that we were going to have.
Mhm.
But like I said, I just came off of a really long period of time at home, so I was
Right.
really looking forward to it. Actually, yeah, I was going to be in Kalamazoo and Madison, playing with some people I haven't played with in a really long time in Indianapolis.
Right.
And even just I would think I was going to go home and visit my family at some point. As you know, we both are in the Stanton Festival in the summer, so those are travels that I just really look forward to. And
Mhm.
maybe it would have been stressful, but yeah, being at home is great. Like everyone loves, I'm a homebody. I like being at
Mhm.
home, but it's just not a normal type of being at home. You don't have your friends to hang out with or babysitters and all of those things. So
Right.
it's just a weird
Right.
thing.
Well, have you been able to find things for yourself that sort of give you some comfort or stability or a feeling of normalcy over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a consistency to my day. My day
Mm.
consists of water pouring.
Yes.
You take a walk outside, you cook your meals. When Eli goes down for a nap, I try to exercise. I try to practice a little bit if I can. And
Hmm.
I think all of those things together, just that consistency, you sort of just know what you're going to have in a day. And it can help. I think exercise is the main thing for me that I have to really make sure that I do. Otherwise, I go
Hmm.
crazy. So we have a dog. We would take our dog for long walks and
Yes,
try
I
to stay
forgot
away from
about your dog.
people.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, that helps. That helps any quarantine situation.
Indeed. Although I have to tell you, I don't think Pete and I got much sleep last night
Oh
because
no.
Peanut is snoring like a
Oh no.
chainsaw. He's sleeping down on the floor, but
Oh.
like I don't know. Does your dog sleep in the
She
bedroom?
starts off in the bedroom and she leaves pretty quickly because she gets overheated. But I love her snoring. It's so cute.
I used to think it was cute, and now we've just gone straight up into the buzz saw. How can an 18-pound dog like
Yeah.
create so much noise? Um It's ridiculous. I do have to clarify. Liz does want to see Eli.
Okay. Well, sorry, Liz. He's sleeping, but we'll FaceTime later.
Exactly. Maybe we can get an appearance from Justin.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come
So
down.
maybe the filler,
Okay.
the fill in. Okay.
Eli
Well, so
Senior.
yeah. So speaking of practice, like,
Yeah.
what has that felt like? I mean, does it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've really learned is that you know, I practiced a lot, like I was talking about in earlier, the torture of my earlier years. I practiced a
Yeah.
lot in my teens and in my 20s. And I think in my 30s, I practice for gigs. I practice because I have a concert coming up that I need to practice for. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I've really learned is that without any concerts, it's really hard to find the motivation to practice for me, especially when you don't have any time. You know, a baby can take up every minute of your day unless you really try to give
Right.
yourself that time. And so
Yeah.
um, there's, some days that I just put a timer on and take the cello out of its case and make sure that I play for 20 minutes. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can look like scales, or sometimes I just play Bach for 20 minutes. For me, it's really important to keep playing every day, at least a little bit. Otherwise, for me, I will like lose my finger strength and ability to play. So I just try to do a little bit every day, but it's really hard. It's hard to snap into that mindset. It's hard to focus. Um, and at the same time, it feels good because that's like a little piece of the, you know, old part of my life that I don't have
Mm-hmm.
right now, and it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
And is there anything in particular that you're playing right now? Um,
I really enjoy practicing the Gabriele Ritricars. A lot of them are just in first position. A lot of
mm-hmm.
it centers around bow for me, the bow, and just really getting to loosen up my bow arm. So it feels kind of like medicine to practice the Ritricale or Gabriele Ritricars. And then, of course, Bach is also always like medicine for the soul. So um, I like to practice.
Do you have a piece that you, when you're practicing or warming up, do you have a piece that's like sort of your barometer, where you know what it's going to sound like when you're sounding good?
Yeah, probably the first cello suite.
Mm-hmm.
That one I've played for so long and so many years that
Mm-hmm.
I can play that one pretty much cold at this point. And if I sound really bad, I know I'm really out of shape. But yeah, that's probably the one.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I didn't discover that for myself until maybe a few years ago. But
Yeah.
when I found that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know, like, I gotta keep this in my warm up routine and sort of
Yeah.
see where I am. And I don't know, for me, it sort of tempers my expectations of the
Mm.
practice session,
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I
you
don't
know?
quite do that. I play a lot of double stops. That's sort of my go-to secret for intonation is just
Mm-hmm.
practicing a lot of double stops, thirds and fourths on the cello really helps. So that's sort of like almost meditation, and it's a great
Mm-hmm.
way for me to just check in with my intonation and in with my
Mm-hmm.
fingers without having to actually play music, which can be sort of like more emotionally draining. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um, so you play two principal instruments. Um, the first one you started out with cello, but you play a Baroque cello. Can
yeah.
you tell our audience what the difference is between a Baroque cello and a modern cello?
Yeah, I mean, probably most of the people here already know this,
Mm-hmm.
Liz and Justin.
Mm-hmm. But
But
for those of the
yeah,
folks who watch the replay or who aren't
sure, yeah,
familiar
of
with
course.
Baroque music, we'd love to know
Yeah.
that.
So, you know, the body of the instrument is the same instrument.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to usually say is that the Baroque cello has no metal on it whatsoever. So, where the modern cello has an end pin that's made out of metal and steel strings,
Mm-hmm.
and usually like the tailpiece has some metal on it. The Baroque cello is probably like 5 pounds lighter because it's just wood and there's no end pin.
Mm-hmm.
And the strings are made out of gut instead of steel. So
Mm-hmm.
I think just
And when we talked about this with Brandon, like,
yeah.
or with Marty, when we talk about gut strings, we're talking about the guts of an animal.
Yes, I know. Sometimes when I say that in front of an audience, I'm like, do they
Like
know what I
what?
sometimes even say intestines because that that resonates more with
We're
people that
talking about innards, y'all.
yeah, we are. I like getting a reaction out of people.
It's
Um,
great. I love it.
yeah, but I think really it's just every material is from the earth and is
Mm-hmm.
you feel a lot more connected to the
Mm.
earth when you're playing these instruments. So
I have not thought of it like that. I love that.
honestly, that's a big part of the way I feel when I play the Baroque cello versus the modern cello. It has this sort of gritty feeling when you play the strings. It's not
Mm-hmm.
as smooth. It has
Mm-hmm.
more texture to it, just that you feel under your fingertips. And yeah, it feels earthy to me. And I mean, not that metal doesn't also come from the earth, but really
Right.
the whole instrument is horse's hair and animal gut and wood. And there is something kind of magical about that and the way that that resonates when there's no sort of like hard metal stopping that anywhere against the floor, and you're holding it between your legs rather than against the floor. So everything is just resonating in a really like alive way, I think. But really the body of the instrument is the same. I think the main differences are the shape of the bow and the strings are what make it sound and feel so different. So the bow, we like to say the modern bow is curved. Some people say like a smile, and the Baroque bow is curved like a frown. And that gives a different shape to the notes and the shapes of the notes that you can play, and the way you articulate. So those are the main differences. A lot of the differences that people most see are actually the end pin, and the lack thereof. People are very fascinated by how I hold the cello without an end pin, but it's really not that different. You're just sort of cradling it within your legs, and you're not squeezing. You don't have really strong legs because you play the Baroque cello. It's just sort of resting there in a cradle.
Who needs a thigh master? You've got
a lot of
Baroque
people
cello.
think that, but it's not like that.
Suzanne Summers got nothing on you.
Don't encourage that.
Don't squeeze it. So that's the cello. Now, can you talk about what a viola da gamba is? In that opening video that I was attempting to play, there is a link in the comments, and I'll also post it in the description after the broadcast today. But you were playing the gamba in that video clip. Can you talk about what it is and where it came from, and a little bit of its history?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I started playing the viola da gamba much later than the cello, so it's still a much newer instrument for me. And actually, Craig Trumpeter, who we all know, helped get me started on gamba. I love telling the story that he just told everyone in Chicago that I played the viola da gamba, so I started getting hired, and I didn't play the viola da gamba. So that's a great way to learn. It's just getting hired by ensembles, and then you have to figure it out. So I'll always thank Craig for that.
Nice. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, no, I do that to other people now. I just tell everyone that they play the viola da gamba, and then they start getting hired.
I love it.
So the main misconception is that it's a precursor to the cello, and that's not exactly true. It's not like the great grandfather of the cello. They actually coexisted at the same time. They're just completely different families of instruments, the violin family and the viola da gamba family. Okay. So much like the violin family that has different sizes of instruments, it has the violin, the viola, and the cello, which are the same instrument in different sizes. The viola da gamba has different sizes. There's the bass viol, which is the one I play. There's tenor, treble, and even the double bass as we know it is really a bass viola da gamba. Just if you see by the sloped shoulders, that's how you can tell that it's part of the same family of instruments.
Okay. So it's not the 1980s shoulder pads.
No, exactly. Yes, it's the sloped shoulders. Right. Yeah, the cello sort of is the shoulder pads instrument. Awesome. I don't know if that's making any sense, but yeah. So the viola da gamba is much more like a guitar, actually, than anything else. It has frets like a guitar. It has 6 or 7 strings, which are tuned in fourths and a third, the way a guitar is, slightly differently, but pretty much the same. And that makes it a lot better for chords, much like the guitar. The cello is not really great at playing chords, but viola da gamba, because of the frets and the curvature of the bridge, you can play chords much more easily. So it was really, really popular in the Renaissance and Baroque periods all over Europe. In England, in the Netherlands, it was huge. You'll see it in all sorts of Vermeer paintings from that time period, in Germany, in Spain. And one of the ways people played it was they would get together in their homes and, almost like singing madrigals or 4 or 5 part vocal music, people would sit down with their viola da gambas of all different size, violas da gamba of all different size, and play those instruments socially in small rooms. There's so much music written for 4 or 5 or 6 violas da gamba that you could really make an evening out of it and never get bored. And then later it became a solo instrument, mostly in France, and then Germany. I talked about the Bach viola da gamba solos. So in its heyday, it was a pretty prestigious instrument, virtuosic. And then unfortunately it phased out for a while because it's quieter than the cello. So the cello became more popular as a solo instrument as concert halls got bigger, and and the viola da gamba, which is with its quiet tone, just sort of faded a little bit to the background. And actually, in the past 40 or 50 years, it's made a comeback, and now I would say it's pretty popular again.
Yeah, yeah, sort of with the whole early music movement that started
Yeah.
like in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and viola da gamba is a great amateur instrument, actually. It always has been and it still is. So you'll
Mm.
find a huge amateur viola da gamba scene in almost every city. Chicago has a wonderful viola da gamba community of people
Yeah.
who play at all different levels. And yeah,
Hmm.
I think because it's a social instrument, people like picking it up and learning it at any age. So yeah,
Does it in terms of, I mean, this is coming from a person, I can't play a stringed instrument to save my life. I just don't have that connection for some reason. Um is there a reason that you think that the viola da gamba is a little more user friendly than the cello,
yes.
or
I mean, mainly the frets, because once you tune the strings, you don't have to
mhm,
worry about intonation,
sure,
which is the main challenge of every other string instrument. We spend about
right,
95% of our brains on intonation.
yeah,
So yeah, I think the fact that the notes are there for you
hmm,
make it a lot more user friendly. And then also, I think the music that's written for viola da gamba, there's such a range. Some music you can really start by just sort of focusing on 3 or 4 notes. Um, each instrument sort of tends to have its middle range that you play a lot of the music at. And yeah, so you can learn it fairly quickly and sit down and play it and read the notes. And once you learn 3 or 4 notes, you can start playing music. But I think the frets are probably the main thing that make it
yeah.
sort of user
But
friendly.
and Ruben and I, we've all had this discussion about frets, and how just because a period instrument has frets doesn't necessarily lessen the skill of the
Oh,
player.
absolutely not.
It
And
it
yeah,
it
I mean,
actually, like you said, it improves the tuning aspect of it, which, if anyone is familiar with a historically informed performance, a concert, there's a lot of time spent on tuning. And
yeah.
can you talk about why that is?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to just clarify that I'm not
Mhm.
meaning to say that the viola da gamba is by any means an easy instrument. It's
Oh, yeah,
incredibly difficult, and I
yeah.
will be a student of the viola da gamba for the rest of my life trying to figure out how to play this instrument. So
Yeah,
I think that it's maybe easier to get started than some other
sure.
instruments, but to master is hugely difficult. And the frets, in some ways make it easier to start, and then in other ways, there's a lot of subtlety that goes into learning how to play the frets. And I've certainly had the experience in a concert where I miss a fret entirely, and then you're playing a whole different note than you intended
Oh
to play. So there's that. What was the question again?
the why there's so much tuning going on
Oh, yeah,
in a as a with a sorry, if someone goes to an early
right.
music
Yeah.
concert as opposed to a modern instrument performance, there's a lot more tuning going on
Yeah,
throughout the
well, that has
evening.
to mainly do with the gut strings that we talked about earlier that go out of tune a lot quicker than
Mm-hmm.
steel strings.
Mm-hmm.
They're just incredibly sensitive to humidity, and even just if you play on them for 20 minutes, they might have moved a little bit. But I also think that that's because if your instrument is a little bit out of tune on a modern instrument, it's not just the instrument itself, it's the way you play it. So you might not really play very many open strings, actually. You're
Mm.
encouraged to what's called cover open strings with a finger. Um, and that means that even if your instrument is a little out of tune, you can adjust with your finger and you might add vibrato to cover up the intonation a little bit. There's a lot of ways that you can sort of hide behind your
Mm.
technique as a modern player.
Mm-hmm.
And you're very exposed when you take away vibrato from your playing and
Mm.
when you're relying on those open strings as a huge part of the notes that you're playing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and you know what? That sorry, sorry to
No, I
interrupt,
just
but
wanted to
like,
make sure that that was making sense. So yeah, I think you're just really um, exposed on these instruments that is a little bit of a shock to the system. If it's the first time you've played one, you'll
mm-hmm.
feel very exposed, and your instrument has to be perfectly in tune in order to blend with each other. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that there are a lot of stereotypes around historically informed performance that I think we're starting to break away from now in this
Yeah.
last 10 years or so. That performance period performance is out of tune, and the tone quality isn't good, and it's just not it's not, the players aren't very skilled. I think we've had a lot of specialized programs in universities and conservatories that are training people specifically for this field, and now we're breaking out of those things. Um, but I'm always entertained by the amount of tuning that happens and the
It's
different
unfortunate.
styles, like the different ways people do it just
Yeah.
kills me. I love it.
Yeah, I think nobody likes starting a concert with tuning. That's the main thing that, like,
Yeah.
if we could just figure out how to make, walk on stage and have our instruments stay in tune from backstage to when we get on stage, that would be great.
I
But
love it.
yeah, I think you're right that those stereotypes are still sometimes out there, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess there's somewhat of a valid reason for that. It is really challenging to play in tune on these instruments, but
Mm-hmm.
um, in my experience, the people I hear playing early music play incredibly well in tune because they have to, and they have to master, the art of playing without vibrato, and the results can be just like stunningly in tune in a way you don't
Mm-hmm.
hear anywhere else. So I
Yeah.
just hope people continue to give it a chance and realize that those stereotypes are not true.
Yeah, we could have a whole series on vibrato in early
Yeah,
music.
yeah, we
we
could.
won't we won't touch that one today. Um, well, speaking of giving early music a chance, you have stepped into the role as our principal cellist and violist de gamba for Third Coast Baroque, and I was wondering, how would you describe Third Coast Baroque to somebody who might not be familiar with it? I know we've got a lot of our regulars in our community watching right now, but for those folks who may not be familiar with Third Coast, how would you describe it? How would you describe your experience with it?
Yeah. First of all, my experience with it has been, of course, really positive. And one of the reasons for that, I was thinking about this earlier, is just uh, as a freelancer, you play in so many different groups, but it's always really wonderful when there's that consistency with one or two groups that you
Mm-hmm.
play with all the time with people. And that's been really wonderful to feel like this is a group that I really rely on and that I play with consistently. And that just gives you a chance to get to know the other musicians and the way that they work. And yeah, so that's been really lovely, is just sort of that consistency. But how would I Third Coast? That's a hard question. It's a community of musicians that really respect each other and uh, work well together. I think Ruben is a great leader in terms of bringing a certain openness and collaboration where everyone has a voice and everyone feels like they can express themselves, and just great programming, exciting programming. Yeah, it's a chamber music ensemble, it's an orchestra, it's a vocal ensemble, it's
Yeah,
kind of
I
a
know.
little bit of everything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we definitely adapt to whatever the repertoire is,
Hmm.
or depending on who we're working with for that particular program. When we had Vivica a couple of years ago, that's when we debuted our orchestra,
That was
and
one of the highlights of the last few years for me. That was such a fun concert.
yeah, that was a big one. Um, but yeah, I think we, like I said, we adapt to whatever the repertoire is, and we have been as small as two artists just
Yeah.
working together. We've played concerts in homes, we've played concerts in large halls like Galvin up at Northwestern, and downtown at Chicago Temple, and out in Naperville at Wentz Hall. So yeah, it's a very malleable
Yeah.
ensemble. Um, well, oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. I just realized that.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm a little off my game today, folks. I blame Peanut. He was snoring. Come on, pupper. Oh, anyway. Um, Anna, thank you so much for being with us today. And if any of you who are watching, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments right now. Um, and also, I wanted to give a shout out. As you said, Justin is also working
Yeah.
from home. Can you tell us a little bit about what he does?
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to plug his stuff a little bit. So he's a musician as well, but for those of you who don't know, he's actually a children's musician, and he normally tours with his 5-piece band or his 3-piece band around the country, making music for kids on the
And you
weekends.
can you tell us what the name of the band is?
Yeah, it's Justin Roberts and the Not Ready for Nap Time Players.
Oh my gosh. As a Saturday Night Live nerd, oh my gosh. The first time I saw that name, I was like, "Yep, I want to know this guy."
Yeah, he's pretty great, and he's a wonderful songwriter. He has, I don't know, 14, 15 albums, so many albums of just incredible songs that are really just for anybody. They're not just for kids.
Mhm.
He often says they're for families or for kids and their grown-ups, but really, like, I love listening to his songs, and I did before I had a kid of my own. So yeah,
Oh.
he's a brilliant songwriter. He's written musicals and children's books as well. So everything kids. And since, well, first of all, he has this new album out. It's right here, actually, that I play on almost every track. So I'm going to support this. It's called Wildlife. And
Wildlife? Okay.
it might be backwards what you're seeing, but
Mhm.
this is actually me on the cover when I was 3 years old, swinging, and
That's you?
that's me. Yep, my
Oh
mom took that
my
picture,
gosh.
or my dad took that picture. We're not sure.
Oh.
So yeah, this has been a big part of both of our lives for the past year. He wrote these songs when I was pregnant and when we had Eli. So even though it's his album, it really sort of feels like a family affair. And
Oh,
there's
I love
actually
that.
viola da gamba on one or two of the tracks, and a lot of cello. And it's not backwards. Okay,
Thanks, John.
good. And uh, yeah, so he worked really hard on that album, and I would love if people checked it out.
Mhm.
And then since the quarantine, he's been adapting to this crazy new situation by doing a television show for kids 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10:30 in the morning. And yeah, it's been really interesting to figure out the whole online media world of performing.
Mhm.
So I've been supporting him a lot in that, by being his cameraman for certain segments and
Mhm.
his microphone holder and things
Yeah.
like that. But we actually might do a feature on the viola da gamba on one of his shows coming up, so you guys can look out for that. But
Yes, I would be happy to share that with our audience. That would be
awesome, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
And you know what I'll do is I'll share links to your website and Justin's website so
that'd be
people
great.
can check everything out. Oh
Yeah,
yes, John, thank you for the reminder. Um, Justin did an incredible PSA for the city of Chicago with the stay at home order. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. That
He
just
can whip up a song like that in like 5 minutes. It's pretty incredible.
it just I it was what, like about a minute or so
Yeah, I
maybe.
think it had to be under a minute or a minute and 20 seconds. They had a time limit for that.
I Yeah, I was watching it and I was like, why am I crying? I'm crying
Oh,
right now. This is a PSA and it is just killing me and I loved it. It was
that's
just it
awesome.
was but it was fun and it was
Yeah.
anyway.
He's good at
So
making people cry. That's I don't know if that's
but
a
like
good
good happy
thing to
cries.
say for a children's musician. Yes, good tears. Very sentimental.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, Anna, this has been so fun.
Yeah, it's fun talking to you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super happy to do it. Thank you everybody who watched with us live today. That was great. Sorry about the technical stuff. You know, we're still learning. I'll figure it out sometime. Probably by the time we're all able to go
It's
outside
hard.
together. Who
It's
knows?
new. Sorry, Justin didn't make an appearance, but you guys can look him up on his website
Yes,
and his television.
absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, don't forget you can subscribe to all of our channels and stuff. So, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can sign up to be on our email list at thirdcoastbaroque.org. We would love to hear from you. How are things going? I mean, we've been talking about the quarantine, staying at home. We're all at home together, and things are, you know, we're going. We're going. Oh, hi, Lynn. Thanks for tuning in. Um, so keep up with us. We'll keep up with you on Thursday, on Third Coast Thursday. I've got one of our board members, James Clock, is going to join us. He is on our board and also an educator in the Chicago Public Schools, as well as another jack of all trades kind of guy, engineering and biology. And we're going to dig into all of this and figure out how he's sharing all of this with Third Coast. It's amazing. Um, But if you want to look at past episodes, you can go to our website. They're all linked there, or any of our other channels. So until next time, Anna, thanks a lot. I hope
Thanks.
Eli has a very good nap.
Thank you.
And I'm going to let you get back to getting some me time for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks,
Awesome.
guys. Good to see
Thanks,
y'all.
everybody. We'll